Kia ora, I'm Nadine Higgins and welcome to your personal finance podcast, The Prosperity Project. I am on a mission to empower you financially. And while I work in finance, I'm a columnist, a journalist, an investor, a financial advisor, and a mum of two. I do not claim to be the font of all knowledge. So each week I'll be bringing in the experts from across the world of finance and beyond to find out all the things you and I need to know. And if you want to get your questions in front of those experts, please email them to me, nadine.higgins at nzherald.co.nz. It's one thing to decide to move on from your job or career, but what happens when you are at the top of your game and your job just kind of evaporates? Melissa Chan Green has spent decades as a television journalist, many of them as Europe correspondent. And she was co-hosting the AM show when Warner Brothers Discovery announced it was closing Newshub and all of the shows that went with it. So how do you navigate that and the financial side of that and re-find your feet in what is a shrinking industry? Melissa Chan Green is on the Prosperity Project today. Kia ora, Melissa.
Kia ora. Lovely to be here with you, Nadine.
Yeah, so nice to be talking to you. And I feel like I have some level of understanding of the process you went through, but it's unique to everybody.
Yeah, but I also do feel that this is part chat, part therapy session for me, so thank you.
Yeah. Well, feel free to put it all out on the table as much as you're comfortable with. But I suppose for those, many people will know some level of your story because it gets writ large in the media. But I wondered if you could give us some idea of the personal toll that takes when you get all called into this meeting and there are cameras waiting outside and they tell you, we're shutting the show down.
Yeah.
What's the... did you see it coming? What was the initial emotional reaction?
Looking in hindsight, there were definitely signs. And I think I'd always approached the job with the sense that, this is a job that potentially might not last forever. I didn't see it shutting down in this way. But I knew that morning TV is not a role that people do forever anyway, and things change. So I guess there was some kind of expectation on that level. But the actual day and the announcement, no, that came as quite a shock to me. And I had a lovely colleague who had kind of given me a bit of a heads up by saying, there's going to be a car parked outside this meeting we go to. And if you want to go straight into that car and leave, we've got that for you. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is happening? So at that point I knew, okay, something is going to impact me terribly.
Yeah. And
then I realized, no, it impacts everybody terribly.
And is it better or worse when it impacts everybody versus it just impacting you? I guess there's a collegiality and we're all in this together.
Yeah. And of course I would have loved to think that Newshub would have been able to continue in some way, but actually it happening to everybody did help. We were all able to go, and we actually had a wonderful afternoon talking about the adventures we'd had over the years and how wonderful the job had been. And then actually for the next 6 months, I found I really enjoyed the time that we were on air, because it was like, this is not forever. Really make the most of this.
Yeah, don't take anything for granted, because literally our days are numbered.
And it was kind of like, well, the ratings are not our focus right now. Our focus is on really having fun and doing what we want. And so in some ways, it was probably great telly because we were just really enjoying ourselves. It being so public, a lot of people say, that must have been quite hard. I actually felt that I was lucky in a sense that a lot of people struggle with these big events happening in their lives by themselves, and you go to the supermarket and nobody knows what you're going through. Yet I would be standing in the butter aisle and people would be coming up saying, hey, I'm really sorry about what's happening to you. And it was quite confronting. I think there was maybe tears in the butter aisle a few times. But I felt I was lucky. I had so much support. People would see me and kind of know what I was going through, and were really empathetic. And, I think I saw that as a lucky thing to happen in some ways.
I can understand that because I know Jesse Mulligan, when he was at 7 Sharp, he put it beautifully and it described quite well how I felt about it. That when you're one of the only ones going through it, people don't want to broach it with you as if it might be contagious.
Yes.
And so they kind of dance around the topic.
Yeah.
Whereas, when it's everyone and it's public, there is a sense of, well, we can share this grief together.
Yeah, and we would be going into work in the morning and some people would be saying, I'm feeling really good about this today. I'm going to have fun. And other people were like, actually, I'm having a really tough day today. I'm having an existential crisis today. I was having fun yesterday, but I'm not today. And so we, for 6 months, shared that grief journey and saw different people experiencing it at different times. And so it helped, and it helped with the space to start thinking about, okay, what's next? I've got some time to think about it. What's happening?
Which is a luxury not everybody has, is the forewarning to have a think about it. Did you also have to go home and talk to your husband and do some sums and go, okay, do we rush straight into a new job or do we take a pause?
Yeah.
What was the thought process there? Because you had just come back from maternity leave not long before you found out the news.
Yes. So on the sums, because I had been of the opinion when I took the job that I have to plan for what happens after this right at the point that I took the job. I was lucky in the sense that we had been living as though this could happen at any point.
That's not lucky. That's really sensible.
Well,
that's foresight. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to be ever left in a position where I would have to do something that wasn't going to be as fulfilling as the job that I had just accepted, because I knew this was dream job material. I would love this. I had to protect my finances and my mental health for what happens afterwards. So that's what was on the sum side of things. We were pretty protected. I was driving a rattly old car that was falling to bits, and I kept saying to myself, if AM goes past 3 years, I'm going to buy myself a new car. Still haven't bought myself a new car.
Would you
didn't make the 3 years.
Would you say that you're a saver by nature, or was that just a real cognizance of the fact that this is a short-lived, people don't last in breakfast television for decades. It's a short-term thing.
I don't know that I would describe myself as a saver, but I plan for worst case scenarios.
You're a planner.
I'm a journalist.
Yes. You've got 10 worst case scenarios laid out.
Exactly. Yeah. I've got plans up to Z. But also on the, just coming back from maternity leave point too, I also feel like, okay, I felt like I came back, when my daughter was around 6 months, and I enjoyed going back to work. I loved it, but the hours are tricky. Yeah. So I actually thought, this does give me some time. It's kind of like second chance at maternity leave.
You seem like a silver linings sort of optimistic kind of person.
I think that's whether I am or not, I'm not sure, but it was my way of coping with it and making sure that I was going to be happy with whatever happened next. Yeah.
So were you able to enjoy that time then? Because you took some time out after the show finished. Were you able to enjoy it like a second chance at maternity leave, or are you worrying during that time about what's next?
I loved spending time with my girl, and that time will always be really special and I'll treasure that. But I am also a planner. So when I was doing that, I was also meeting with a lot of people that either reached out to me or I reached out to them, and I just said, I want to pick your brain. And I was just gathering information from people who have been there and done that with either big changes, or they've been super successful, or they're people I admire for the mindset that they take into the work they do, or they're really purpose driven. So I was gathering information as well.
You kind of went back to your journalistic skill set and you did some research.
Yeah. And it was fun because I had space and time, Media is moving to this point where we kind of do that daily churn. You get caught up in the daily churn and you don't have the time to really talk to people and gather information. So it was a wonderful, fulfilling time, actually.
Yeah. Did you always think that your next step would be something in the media, or did you look at the landscape and go, it might have to be broader than that?
Yeah, I thought, okay, what is it about the job that I'm going to miss and journalism that I'm going to miss? Because I really had been able to do so much that I wanted to do in journalism. So it was like, okay, what am I missing, or what do I want to keep hold of? And it was the kind of viewer emails that would be saying, we're going to really miss this sense of connection that we have, that we get to wake up and be part of a discussion. And so for me, it was like, actually, that's the part of storytelling that I somehow want to hold on to, is feeling like you're part of something, you're learning something together, you're on a journey together. But I was also seeing media moving in a way that I don't feel my skill set was really moving in the same direction, and that as journalists, you often a subject matter expert in terms of knowing a little bit about a lot. Well, that's certainly how my career had been. I'd kind of done entertainment and sport and big events and politics and all sorts of things, but just a little about a lot. And I feel that media really is moving to a point where you want to hear from experts who are real subject matter experts and know a lot about a certain topic. I didn't feel actually that my career had gone in that direction. And so I felt that if I wanted to continue in storytelling, I had to really embrace a particular topic and really go deep on that. Kind of like you've done this in business, right? And you had done that while you were a journalist, but I didn't feel that I had. And so I felt like that's where I had to move.
It's fascinating, but you bring such a breadth of knowledge, having been the expert generalist on, Europe correspondent and going to Anzac Day and Com Games and like royal events. There'd be a lot that you know about a lot, rather than a lot about a small.
That's kind. That's kind, but yeah, I think. And I enjoyed being able to do such a wide range. And I think when you're a correspondent, that's naturally kind of what you have to do, because you're one person covering a large patch. But I was and have always been quite passionate about education, and I thought I have a chance actually to go deep. And so I went and did some of the training that the teachers are doing on the new curriculum, and thought, looking at it from a lens of a journalist and a parent, there is something I can use, kind of my media skills, to help disseminate this information. And yeah, I guess a little bit crazy going that deep by actually doing the training, but I had an opportunity to do it.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit more about that after the break. But just before we get to the break, I want to just step back one step. When we talked about you having come back from maternity leave, and then not long after, there's this tectonic shift where you work. Often when you come back from maternity leave, and lots of mothers, working mothers, will identify with this, is sometimes you do have, I think you described it as an existential crisis that some people were having. Did you have any sense of that coming back to work, or because you were doing it for a second time, were you able to reconcile those feelings better? How did you find it?
I think motherhood changed me in the sense of understanding my value and actually not spreading myself as thin as I had before. I think it actually allowed me to focus on the things that I really wanted to do and start shaving off the things that I didn't.
More prioritization, because there's only so much of you to go around.
Exactly. And it makes you understand the value of your time. If you're saying yes to a project, you're saying no to the time that you get to spend with your kids. And it also made me feel I have everything I need. And the corporate climb or the financial climb, that sort of thing, is not the priority for me anymore. I have what I need. And so now I want to do something that fulfills that sense of gratification and purpose, rather than what maybe I might have been focused on earlier in my career.
Is that to say that you'd had the career satisfaction, but had you kind of attained a level of financial security and you're like, I'm happy with this, rather than that constant want for more? Yeah.
And that's certainly not to say, that I have felt that I I didn't have the car that wasn't falling to bits.
Yeah.
But it was like, I've realized I don't need that. I don't need that to be happy. I've got this wonderful husband. I've got my family. I'm so privileged that I have a clean, warm, dry house that we, can raise our children in. And so, what is it that means something to me now then?
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's what changed.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about the meaning you've found in your next step, but we do need to take a quick break. We will be back with Melissa Chan Green in just a tick. Welcome back to the Prosperity Project. We're talking to Melissa Chan Green about career reinvention when I guess the industry you're working in just has this tectonic shift. And you've started alluding to one of your current projects, School Shorts, and you mentioned you'd actually done some of the literacy training that teachers are doing. How did that opportunity come about?
It was just through talking to people that I saw were making big moves in this area. So people who kept coming up in discussions with people about, this is somebody that's really helping in the literacy space. And just explaining to them, look, I really want to get a good understanding of what the change is, what it means for teachers, what it means for parents. And then that kind of sparked discussions with various people who were doing training with teachers. Well, do the training and then you'll understand.
Yeah. Was that a passion area because of the age of your children? Your son's not long gone to school?
Yeah.
Or is it something you've always been interested in?
Well, I think for me, reading and storytelling probably changed the course of my life because I was debilitatingly shy in school. And so reading and the love of language is really what got me into journalism.
Some people would be amazed to hear that you were debilitatingly shy when you had this public job for 20 years.
I know. And it was all really by accident. I never ever intended to go into television. I just met a series of people and it was like, okay, come and do some work experience here. And I would just kind of wide-eyed, like scared me would go, okay. And then one thing would lead to another.
And did you get that confidence on the job then if you were so shy to begin with?
Yeah, I think confidence was something that, I think with everybody, it grows when you're doing something that you feel passionate about, right? So I love to tell someone's story, and I think the comfort in being able to do that makes me feel comfortable enough to do it in a broadcasting sense. So firstly, it changed my life. Secondly, my kids were becoming school age and my son was coming home with all these terms of things he's doing at school, like PMP and,
acronyms.
I know. And I was like, we didn't do this stuff at school. What is it? What is going on in school? And also then on the journalistic level, we're doing all these interviews about, literacy rates dropping and changing the way in which we teach kids to read. And so it was all kind of coming together to form an interest in what was happening.
So you've started the podcast. Is the idea here to just have an impact in an area that you're passionate about? Or are you also hoping that it and whatever you expand it into will pay the bills and become a business?
Yeah, I think monetizing it is definitely, something that we are looking at because that's the way in which we can grow and make more impact. But certainly in the short term, it is impact and awareness and also information. So I want to kind of know what is it that parents and teachers feel is missing from public discussion, and what is it that we're missing in terms of how we can help our children at home in terms of cementing what's going on in class. So when I have gathered that information, I guess when I've done my journalistic research,
due diligence,
then I think I will have a clearer idea of, what is the way then that we can expand this and grow this to make maximum impact.
Yeah. And so I guess as a result of that, you're going for maximum impact to begin with and doing your research. You've also got other pots on the boil, you know. You're an MC, you're doing some presenting for Radio New Zealand. But then, of course, in May's budget, they got their funding cut. Does that do you get a bit of PTSD from that or?
Not really. I'm trying to live my life through not looking at ratings or media budgets anymore because there's been too many decades of that. I just feel lucky. I do have a few projects that are all things that make me feel fulfilled now, and that are projects that I feel like I get something personally out of. And whenever something doesn't feel like that anymore, then I know that's the thing that's going to go, you know.
So is it a bit of a portfolio career? You know, you've got several things all on the go at once, and do they add up to enough?
Yeah, I think it's portfolio, but they're all kind of related in some way. So School Shorts is certainly, it's not taking my full-time attention right now. But I feel that the reporting that I'm doing outside of that is aligned. I'm very much a focus on education. And then I'm working on a personal project, which is a story my granddad had wanted to try and start to tell about the Chinese Anzacs who fought in World War II. And so it's a storytelling piece around that as well, and the stories that haven't been told. So I feel it's all aligned, but it's not as clear cut as I work these hours each day anymore, which for my kind of organized head is something to get used to for sure.
And I know you said you always used to be a yes person, but now you've realised the cost of a yes when it should be a no, and that maybe you were searching for more balance.
Yeah.
Is this delivering that balance, or does it bleed into every part of your life and so you never get to kind of leave work?
It's given flexibility. Yes. So yeah, it's like a puzzle that I can move around based on the rest of what's going on in life with family, you know. So nothing is set in stone, but it also does mean I'm shifting things around to make it all fit. And, you know, I things might change in future, but right now it's the best outcome to help me cope with the change that it was, because it feels like it is something that I am just as excited about. And that's what I needed to be able to cope with what had happened.
And I guess 2 years ago, could you have imagined that this is what your daily reality would be like?
Yeah, no, not at all. But I guess 2 years ago I had, you know, just my son. And so, as you will know very soon or already, when you add the other child into the mix, like, you know, no expectations are on the table anymore.
Yeah, even getting out the door with 2 children is
totally
an achievement. I guess media is not the only industry, right, that is fundamentally changing. Do you have any thoughts for other people who are looking at the industry they're in and going, this might not even exist in 2, 5, 10 years' time. Who knows?
Yeah.
AI might replace me, whatever.
Yeah.
What would you tell them based on your experience?
Yeah, it is. It's a hard one because I know there are so many, you know, I talk to friends of mine and PR and they're feeling the same kind of thing. And there's no kind of way of saying this without it sounding really cheesy. But I think for a couple of decades working in the same job, it had meant that for me, my job became my identity a bit. And I feel like I was really wrapped up with what I was doing was who I was. And I really had to change that around and think, what is my identity? What are my values? And then let that shape the work that I wanted to do. And one of the mentors, one of my friends that I met up with really early on, was the person who really made me sit down and go, be honest with yourself. What is it that you really want? And some of those things you might not be willing to tell other people, and you've got to think about that and be really honest with yourself, and then think, okay, this is what I really want. What can I search for in terms of work that will fulfill that?
And sometimes you have to create it, which is what you've done.
Yeah. But when you think about those values, sometimes that becomes clearer. Yeah. And changing industry can be scary sometimes. And I don't necessarily think that I've really done that yet, but I think you always have to think about it not being starting again, that you take all your experience, whether that's been quite varied or whether it's been in a specific track, and feel that all the experience you have is different from someone else. And so there's real value to you in the different threads that you have, that someone else might not have those same threads. And you just have to back yourself that all your threads make you the best possible person to do the project that you might come up with or that you want to go and do.
I so deeply relate to you saying, that your identity gets wrapped up in what you do, and then you have to take a step back and you go, no, that's my job. That's not who I am.
Yeah.
And so you've got to unpick that in order to find what becomes the new vocation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And stop thinking about what are other people going to think about the work that I'm doing.
Were you thinking about that a lot?
I think, in all honesty, I thought, are people going to think it's strange that I'm doing an education podcast that's quite different to what I was doing? And then, I think I did think, well, people might think it's strange I'm doing something so different. And then, I caught myself and thought, what is successful to me does not have to be what that person thinks is success for me. I know what I'm doing and I know what impact I'm hoping to have. And you just have to remind yourself that it's the people that are close to you and their thoughts and their expectations on you that really matter.
Yeah, and it often pays to remind yourself that most people are too busy worrying about themselves to be worrying about what anyone else is
Absolutely,
doing.
Yeah. And, I think people in the media, sometimes we get a bit wrapped up in this because there's a lot of reporting about what we're doing and what this person's doing and that person's doing. And I think I did feel a bit of pressure around, there might be a story about what I'm doing next. And so what are people going to think? And then I just thought, it actually doesn't matter. It does not matter. And as you say, people don't care. They've got their own things going on. Do what is important to you.
Yeah.
I guess you're someone that might understand, especially what I'm talking about, just because you went through a similar experience. Did you feel that, your identity was kind of wrapped up in what you were doing there as well?
100%. And I was 30 at the time, and I thought that my career was over. And I think at the time I was like, do you know what? I probably will never work in media again. And look, it didn't quite work out that way because I went on to, the project and, did bits and pieces in the media over the years. But ultimately I did at that point take the step down the financial advice route.
Yeah.
And I've said this before on the podcast, but when people ask you what you do, when I said I'm a journalist, I work in television, they'd be fascinated and want to know all about it. And now when you say you're a financial advisor, it doesn't quite spark the same level of fascination.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it's really fascinating. And so maybe that was part of it, that I had to come back to, well, what are my values? What lights my fire? What gets me up in the morning? Not what stories do other people want to know about.
I feel like there are some parallels in the work that you're doing in terms of, the information and the contacts and the experience you get with financial advising. And then with the podcast, really speaking to a community. And it's so interesting that we've both been in jobs that were on, breakfast television to kind of mass audience. And just to think, the changes that we're seeing there where, more and more we're turning to kind of more niche, but kind of dedicated, loyal communities that are interested in a specific thing and interested in hearing from people who have experience in that area rather than the kind of mass audience stuff.
For me, it almost feels like it came full circle, because when I hosted the business show all those years ago, it was a niche audience. And then at the time the call was made that there is no audience and so we're getting rid of the show. Whereas now there's 100% an audience for finance.
Yes.
It just looks a little different.
Yeah. And it's so interesting though to understand from a commercial perspective what is valuable to organizations and to brands now, because I would imagine that the financial shows where you have a very defined audience and you know what your viewers, your listeners are interested in, takes on a bigger value than an audience where you can have a wide range of people who are tuning in for very different reasons. And so the content has to be kind of quite wider.
We talked about you not being able to imagine this 2 years ago, but if you were to cast forward, what are your hopes for what you might be doing in a couple of years or even over the next decade of your career?
Yeah, we really want to create media resources that are going to help a community approach to teaching kids to read, basically. So, helping parents to build the foundation skills before their children get to school, because kids start on such an uneven footing when they head into new entrants or year one. And so I feel like if I can somehow contribute in some way to kind of equitable information to be out there, that means that can help families and ultimately it can help kids learn to read, then that would be, I would feel like I had done something meaningful and something that I would have set out to do.
Well, you've been so thoughtful about this process, so I hope that other people can take something from your approach. I'm sure they can, and you've got so many skills that are valuable. So I just look forward to seeing how you go.
Thank you. I've also I got your new son just a little, it's a onesie with the School Shorts logo.
Oh, cute.
Because I thought, he is representative of the next generation of children that are going to learn to read under the new approach. And
that's so kind.
So there you go.
Yeah, I think he's literally a whole new generation, because I think babies born in 2025 are like, I don't know what the term is for it, but they're the next ones after.
Oh, Gen Alpha are we up to Gen Alpha?
I think we might
beta.
Yeah. Anyway, he's at the forefront of it. So
amazing.
Thank you very much.
There you go.
And thank you for joining us on the Prosperity Project.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Prosperity Project. You can follow this podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts, and please do chuck us a rating or a review while you're there. For more personal finance and business content, head to nzherald.co.nz, and please do feel free to get in touch with your questions and your stories, nadine.higgins at nzme.co.nz. A reminder though that this podcast is informational only and nothing we say here should be considered personalised financial advice. But also remember that while listening to this podcast is hopefully going to be additive to your financial knowledge, and that is fantastic, knowing stuff doesn't create change, doing stuff does. So what action are you going to take today to make your life more prosperous? My producer for this episode is Ethan Sills. Sound engineer is Richard Martin. I'm Nadine Higgins. Thanks for listening to the Prosperity Project.
Brought to you by moneyfit.me.